The 18th century British colonial empire in India was founded on two pillars. The first was the French ambition to establish a firm base in India. Second, it was a combination of political fragmentation and the weak and short-sighted character of then ruling native classes. The latter is quite a common subject for British and nationalistic Indian historians, but the former is a less discussed and foregone subject that needs attention to clearly understand that it was French, not British, who conceived and initiated the idea of subjugation of a flourishing and matured Indian economy, which was later grabbed and shackled for British imperialism by vigorously using it for the acceleration of industrial revolution and the colonial expansion in North America and elsewhere. Initially in the 17th century, France was like other players in Europe. However, her European supremacy dream began with the long reign of Sun King Louis XIV, which typified Europe's age of absolutism. His first minister, Colbert, promoted the Mercantilism theory which propelled France to the forefront of Europe, which also necessitated France taking a more active role in the thriving world commerce of the East, including the colonial expansion in Americas. Since France started late in competing for the trade of the East in the Indian Ocean, it had to work hard, particularly in Hindustan, where it was tough for France to compete with their fellow Europeans, especially the Dutch and the English. Nevertheless, by the first quarter of the 18th century, France had firmly established itself in Pondicherry on the Coromandel coast of India, with good business all along the Bay of Bengal and a factory at Chandan Nagar. This was certainly the result of a great work of incredibly courageous leaders of French East India Company, Caron, Martin and Dumas, who by 1740, besides initial difficulties at Surat, brought France to the central stage of the Indian peninsula. This was the most critical period in the history of India. After the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, Mughal princes were infighting for the throne in Delhi. And the period of weak emperors just started when the Saeed brothers dethroned Farrukh Sher in 1719 and installed multiple emperors in quick succession. The Marathas continued to expand their influence at the expense of Mughals, asserting their dominance in larger parts of India, except in Bengal where Nawab Alivardi Khan repelled their multiple invasions and maintaining a degree of independence from Mughal control. In South India, Asaf Jah, one of the generals of Aurangzeb, firmed up his control in Deccan and Carnatic during the initial Mughal succession strife, but later actively participated in eliminating the Saeed brothers and putting Emperor Muhammad Shah on the Delhi's throne. As a reward and political compulsion, the emperor made him permanent viceroy of Deccan, lately famously known as the hereditary title of Nizam. Since the beginning, Europeans have been working around the edges of Indian economy, often competing with each other very hard. These rivalries intensified further with the rapid collapse of Mughal authority and the complex political fragmentation, particularly in the Carnatic. This led them to enlist the aid of local rulers in weakening or expulsing other Europeans, which further enticed them to become free from native rulers and create their own zones of influences. The decisive blow to Mughal authority came in 1739 when the Persian ruler Nadir Shah invaded India, defeated the Mughals at Karnal, sacked Delhi, looted the Mughal treasury, and completely incapacitated the empire beyond repair. It not only created doubt about the Mughals' pan-Indian authority, but the invincibility of native Indian forces on land also came under the scanner of Europeans. Joseph Francois Dupleix, the most intelligent of the lot, then serving as a French director at Chandannagar, Bengal, after getting information from the Mughal court, was the first to make the observation and write to Paris, which went unnoticed. The French East India Company was not as independent as the English Company, and the flow of funds for trade was always a problem. Therefore, to survive and source seasonal goods from the hinterland, they always depended on the local bankers for funds. Lately, they started purchasing land and tax right from the native Nawabs to generate revenues for their survival. This created opportunities for involvement in local politics, which became more prominent in the Carnatic, as the political chaos was more distinguished here due to the distance from the Mughal Delhi and the involvement of Marathas. Therefore, in 1742, when Dupleix became Governor General of Pondicherry, he started nurturing his ideas of direct control of local trade and premises. But the pace and the involvement of Dupleix in Carnatic's local politics were so fast and intense that it is not appropriate to say that had he not been called back in 1754 to France due to doubtful character of the directors in Paris and the short-sightedness of the French court, France could have completely ousted the British from India. And this could have certainly resulted in French becoming a major power in India, generating trade surpluses and funding their conquest of colonies in North America and elsewhere. And it is easy to envision then that the majority of India and the USA could have been speaking French today. Dupleix, the man with the silver spoon, was born in Landres, France in 1697 in a wealthy tax collector family with a keen interest in exact science, particularly math. His father, who later became director of the French East India Company, wanted him to be a trader. Therefore, he sent him in his youth on voyages to India and America, and in 1720 he put him as a second consular with the number 2 position in the Security Council of Pondichery. On August 1722, Dupleix at the age of 25 arrived in Pondicherry amidst the confusion over the succession that resulted from Governor Prevost's sudden death and Lenoir as his replacement. However, when the packet from the Paris was opened, Lenoir was directed to go to Surat as chief. Delorme, the second consul, was appointed as the new governor, but he refused the post. Therefore, as a principle, Dupleix, the next in command, should be the governor, but Lenoir refused to step down. Then the Security Council, after consultation, decided to send Dupleix to Mocha, as it was thought he was too young to succeed as governor. Dupleix's fortunes changed as quickly as Paris, in March 72, informed him of the demotion to under merchant level in Masulipatam. But because of the staffing shortage, he continued. And in 1724, the council sent him away as a supercargo of the ship St. Joseph to Canton, China. But when he returned, he was charged with misuse of finances, and the council under now confirmed governor Lenoir asked him to go back to Paris. He also asked his powerful brother in Paris to interfere, and in 1729 he was restored to his previous positions, which enraged Lenoir, who, with the council's support, appointed him director of Bengal at Chandan after the death of Blanche Chetri there. Dupleix joined Chandan in November 1731, the French capital in Bengal on the Hooghly River since 1688, where they were doing business in a difficult trading environment with frequent local Nawab intervention. Petty Rajas, Jamindars often set Naka for toll taxing Europeans who were sourcing commodities from deep hinterland like Patna and Kasim Bazar by river channels. Also, the French were denied permission to mint the coin because it required a large investment to get a recommendation from Nawab for Farman from Delhi. Furthermore, Arcot or Pondicherry coins were banned in Bengal, and the French had to pay the local saraf to change them in the Sika rupee. The English, who had permission to mint, had also established many obstacles to prevent French minting. In the complex and rapidly changing political context, the Nawab of Bengal treated all Europeans' enterprise to maximize levies and sometimes used one European for another. European officials were also engaged in highly profitable and risky private trading business by forming syndicates with explicit investment and profit-sharing arrangement. Seeing it as a wonderful opportunity, Dupleix developed an East Coast network and indulged heavily in private trading along with the company trade. Due to peace in Europe, there was a rapid transformation of the French company in India, which aligned with the fast-changing political scenario in India. The invasion of Nadir Shah and the defeat of Mughals also gave rise to aggressive European attitude, observed very early in the letters of Dupleix from Bengal. It is true that he did not write of the substitution of the Mughal power, but hinted at helping the local authority that would remain dependent on European support. His object was to get greater commercial privileges. Therefore, one sees that the transformation in European view of India was already forming at the end of the invasion of Nadir Shah, and they were gradually readying themselves for transforming into a state power. From the beginning, Dupleix had a contentious relationship with Pondicherry Governor Lenoir, but his interaction improved with Pondicherry after Dumas replaced Lenoir. However, Dumas wanted to retire after the graceful handling of the affairs of Pondicherry with Maratha. La Baudouin, the director of the Isle of France, was also conversing for this coveted post, but Dupleix emerged as the winner thanks to the influence of his brother in Paris. This was the start of a very turbulent time for French India, during which Dupleix made the French the master of South India and prepared the French almost ready to further move to Delhi as the master of Hindustan, annihilating their arch rival English from the scene.